Put it, wait till it's... Order. Simon Jupp to move the motion.
Yeah. I beg to move that this House has considered the performance of South West Water. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Mr Henderson. I'm delighted to have secured this important debate, and today's debate is 1 year on from the same debate I secured on the performance of South West Water. It is another opportunity to hold South West Water to the highest possible standards on the floor of this Parliament. Last year, I described the performance of our water company's historic lack of investment as shameful. I know many constituents shared my point of view. This year, I want to focus my speech on the facts facing my East Devon constituency. The public wants to see evidence of improvement. The public wants to see delivery of a promised investment, and the public wants South West Water to clean up their act and our water. South West Water must deliver better services for our constituents, improve our bathing waters, and protect our natural environment. Without doing so, puts the vibrancy of our coastal communities under threat. As the MP for East Devon, I'm determined to push South West Water to deliver the standards expected by local residents, visitors, and businesses. I want the unacceptable pollution we've seen in Exmouth, Sidmouth, and Budleigh Salterton to be met with the full force of the law. We finally have the tools to hold South West Water to account, thanks to this Conservative government. This is the biggest crackdown on sewage spills in history. Unlimited fines, accelerated investment plans, legal targets to reduce discharges from every single storm overflow, and eliminating all ecological harm. Compulsory storm overflow monitors, and forcing live spill data to be made public. I voted for all of that. The government has passed a suite of new laws to crack down on spills, which include the Environment Act 2021, the Environmental Targets Water Regulations 2022, the Environmental Civil Sanctions Amendment Order 2023, and the Environmental Permitting Amendment Regulations 2023. These new laws, brought in by this Conservative government and no government previously, are forcing the hand of water companies. But new laws on their own will not clean up our water. More investment, better data, and tougher enforcement are clearly needed. Now, looking at investment, we know that South West Water has historically failed to invest. We pay the highest sewerage bills in the country, and we've not had our fair return for decades. On data, we now know the scale of the problem because this government lifted the lid on the water companies' infrastructure and made them pay to monitor the results of their own failures. On enforcement, the Environment Agency must be appropriately funded to carry out their enforcement work. To crack down on water pollution, this government has boosted funding for the Environment Agency. There is a £2.2 million per year budget specifically for water company enforcement activity, and that means more officers focus on regulation, compliance checks, and more data specialists. The Environment Agency workforce numbers are higher than a decade ago. There are now 13,200 staff, and it's growing in their base in Exeter. In the last 2 years, staff numbers have grown by 2,300 across the Environment Agency. So are things moving in the right direction? Well, as the Environment Agency have said, there is still much work to be done. The Environment Agency's latest annual rating for South West Water is now 2 stars. That rating is for 2022. In 2021, it was a 1-star water company. The Environment Agency said that the 2-star rating is evidence of modest improvements. However, they also said that pollution was still at unacceptable levels. I agree. It was only last year that South West Water was fined £2.1 million after admitting it caused pollution across Devon and Cornwall dating back to 2016. And the year before last, South West Water was hit by £13 million in the form of fines of bill deductions for customers. Since these fines were handed out, the government has legislated to introduce unlimited financial penalties on water companies and expand the range of offences to which penalties can be applied. I will give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable member for giving way. And that's interesting to note that there was a £2.1 million fine levied against South West Water. But for a company that has a debt in its water business of £2.8 billion, does he think that £2.1 million in terms of debt or in terms of a fine that is levied is going to make any difference?
I think every little helps, and when we look at, for example, the scale of fines and potential new fines in the future by ongoing investigations, which I'll come to later, I think we'll see more money levied in that way from South West Water in the future. Money raised by fines will then be channelled back into improving water quality, supporting local groups and community-led schemes which help to protect our waterways. Now, the bosses of water firms that commit criminal acts of water pollution will be banned from receiving bonuses. I am pleased that the Chief Exec of South West Water led by example here by not accepting a bonus last year. Meanwhile, the industry regulator Ofwat is currently investigating South West Water's wastewater treatment works and leakage reporting. I and many other colleagues look forward to seeing the outcome of these investigations. The need for independent regulators, Ofwat and the Environment Agency, to act decisively in these investigations is crucial. Unfortunately, I have to report the start of 2024 was particularly poor for South West Water in my constituency. Exmouth has faced several major incidents resulting from failures in South West Water's infrastructure and the lack of investment in the town. South West Water has been using tankers to take sewage from burst sewer pipes to pumping stations, causing additional spills due to the disposal of additional tankered sewage. These incidents are currently under investigation from the Environment Agency, and the situation was and is completely unacceptable.
Will you give way on that point?
Of course.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for securing this debate, but the instance that he has just given is something that's been happening in the town of Kingsbridge, in my constituency, where there have been significant floods, where raw sewage has been coming out of the network. And the problem with this is that the investigations are not quick enough, the action to resolve them are not quick enough, and the understanding of the damage that this does to both residents and businesses is not well enough understood by South West Water, who need to engage at a far quicker rate. Does he not agree?
I do agree with my honourable friend. I think that the extra resources that are being pumped into the Environment Agency in our region will no doubt be helpful. Unfortunately, when it comes back to Exmouth, some of the ground teams, so contractors but people that also work for South West Water, were trying to fix this mess, faced harassment and abuse during the weeks of disruption. Historic underinvestment and poor management from South West Water executives is not the fault of workers on the ground who are out day in, day out in all weather. And I want to thank everyone who worked to fix those failures. They worked so hard, come rain or shine. As investigations continue into this extremely sorry state of affairs, I'm continuing to work with the Environment Agency, Ofwat and the Water Minister. Every option must be on the table in response, including hefty fines. The recent debacle in Exmouth has once again demonstrated the dire need for fast-tracked investment into Exmouth's water infrastructure, fully funded by South West Water. I've asked Ofwat to include Exmouth's recent pollution incidents as part of their ongoing investigation into sewage treatment works, and I'm pleased this is happening. I did visit the Exmouth burst pipe alongside the Environment Agency, and I challenged South West Water on the timescales for a permanent solution, and repeated my calls to speed up their plans for £38 million worth of investment in Exmouth. Now, work includes upgrades to reduce spill frequency at Fear Park and Mare Road pumping stations and upgrading the sewage treatment works outlet through Sandy Bay Holiday Park. It is apparently due to be completed by March 2025. But let me be exceptionally clear. I remain to be convinced that plans to manage spills by moving them from one part of the network to the other across town or by building pipes further out to sea, I don't think they will deliver the result the people of Exmouth dearly deserve. Nor will I or anyone else be grateful for a partial fix. I would add that we still do not know the precise location of an important sewer overflow in Exmouth. After so many months, South West Water still hasn't determined where the Mare Road CSO spills off Exmouth Beach. That is unacceptable.
Will you give way again on that?
I will give way.
I apologise for intervening twice on him, but actually he's just made an essential point about the impact that water companies are also having on our aquaculture businesses, some of which are based out of Brixham, but some of which are also based out in Lyme Bay of his constituency, which are severely jeopardised by the network that South West Water operates and by their lack of ability to treat their sewage, and therefore puts those businesses in jeopardy. Will he agree that we actually need to make sure that they are taking into account what businesses are going to be affected by those networks?
I 100% agree with my honourable friend. He makes a very powerful point about the impact on businesses that this unacceptable performance leads to happen. Now, the end of the pipe off Exmouth Beach is important to know. We need to know the location, not only for a potential breach of the Environment Agency's permit conditions, but also for the safety of bathing water users. I remain on the case with South West Water. But this saga, let me be really clear, has dragged on for far too long. Both the Environment Agency and I agree that investment to reduce sewage spills in Exmouth is well overdue, and I will not relent in my calls for more investment from South West Water in Exmouth and across all parts of East Devon. Near to Exmouth is the gorgeous town of Budleigh Salterton. The town is at the mouth of the River Otter and a new national nature reserve I was privileged to go to just a couple of weeks ago. A couple of hours ago, I learned that a sewer pipe burst in Budleigh Salterton happened last night. South West Water were using tankers to transport flows from Budleigh to Mare Lane sewage treatment works. I understand from South West Water the repair has now been complete. I remain in touch with them about this very recent incident and its impact on the local environment and disruption to residents. I've already received several emails on the matter. I've asked South West Water for more details on their longer-term plans for Budleigh Salterton and what their investment will mean in terms of spills. Now, following my debate in Parliament last year, South West Water announced a new multi-million-pound package to upgrade Sidmouth and Tipton St John's sewer system and reduce the number of spills. Now, I've been calling on South West Water to speed up this already announced investment into the area. I reiterate my call today. I know they'll hear me. We've seen far too many reports of spills off Sidmouth Beach in the last few weeks, and if it is possible to go further and faster while balancing the cost to customers, South West Water must not hesitate to do so. And if South West Water believes their sewage systems cannot cope with new housing developments, they must say so. The government is looking to consult on whether to make water companies statutory consultees on major planning applications. This is something I wholeheartedly support and would urge the Minister to press ahead with as quickly as possible. Now, I firmly believe that applications for new planning developments should only go ahead if it is clear the local water infrastructure can cope. I would also urge the Minister to get water companies to install monitors on all emergency overflows. There cannot be any excuses for pollution. I understand the government wants to do this, so I'd be grateful to hear a timescale for when this could happen. Looking at my part of Devon, South West Water must make its water infrastructure fit for the future. Now, I understand when the new town of Cranbrook, which I'm proud to represent, was being built, South West Water opted to upgrade an existing sewage treatment works in Exeter rather than build a new plant. If further development east of Exeter is to go ahead, I would urge South West Water very strongly to draw up plans for a new plant with urgency. Councillors on East Devon District Council very much jumped the gun to sign off a further new town of 8,000 homes in our district just weeks before the National Policy Planning Framework was announced, which gave them the tools to challenge such housing targets, especially in these circumstances. This was spectacularly short-sighted and risks further challenges with the district's water infrastructure. Now, I will not use much more time in this debate as I'm conscious that other colleagues would like to speak. But outside of Parliament, I've been working cross-party with East Devon Parish, Town, District and County Councillors. This must be a cross-party endeavour. I've been working with environmental groups too. I've raised their concerns with South West Water's bosses, ministers, the Environment Agency and Ofwat. We all want to hold South West Water to account about their plans to invest in East Devon and urgently fix local problems as and when they crop up, and they do crop up all too frequently. I've previously secured compensation for residents of Cliff St Mary after foul flooding in the village, and I recently helped local charity Sidmouth Hospice at Home to reach a resolution over a hefty bill from South West Water. I've also facilitated meetings between both Sidmouth Town and Lympstone Parish Councils to senior figures in South West Water to look at data and delve into the issues in granular detail. Now, South West Water have held community meetings in Exmouth and Sidmouth recently, and I urge the company publicly to continue to talk regularly with the communities that pay for their services. I would also urge South West Water to publish their post-2025 investment plans online as soon as these plans are finalised. After all, it is we, the public, that are the bill payers. We have the right to know what's going on. We all want to protect our stunning coastline, rivers and streams and hold South West Water to account for their failings. And we finally have the tools to do so through targets, fines, monitoring, data and investment plans. Now, I'm very pleased to have secured this debate on the performance of South West Water. I look very much to hearing from the contributions of other colleagues and the Minister this afternoon.
Yeah.
I was about to gently remind members to bob if they wanted to speak, but it looks like I don't have to do that. Could I also gently, though, urge members to restrict their comments to about 5 minutes? Thank you very much. Luke Pollard.
Thank you very much, Mr Henderson. And it is good to follow my fellow Jana and member from East Devon in bringing forward this debate. The performance of South West Water is not good enough. It is something that is felt by the constituents he represents and the constituents that I represent. And there needs to be new, renewed cross-party pressure on the company to invest in the services that are required to cut sewage spills, to return reliable water usage all year round, and to address the concerns that exist about drought in our area. Now, I think sewage, raw sewage, is the perfect metaphor for the last 14 years. For years, South West Water have dished out huge dividends to its shareholders while dumping sewage into our rivers and seas. Our region deserves so much better than that. The most recent data from the Environment Agency hasn't yet been published for 2023, I understand, but from the 2022 figures, there were more than 37,000 sewage spills in the southwest. In Plymouth alone, there were more than 2,000, an average of 5 spills every single day. That was 12,750 hours of sewage dumping. Now, according to South West Water's live interactive map on storm overflows, as of 3:30 today, there are 26 bathing water locations across Devon and Cornwall that may be affected by the operation of overflows, including 2 in Plymouth. Having more data is a necessary part of being able to respond to the challenges of a lack of investment in infrastructure for a long time. But that data must lead to enforcement, and that data must lead to a change in investment behaviour by South West Water to start shutting down these storm overflows for routine discharge. I think all of us in this House would recognise that in the event of extreme weather, our water system can't hold that much water. But we're not talking about extreme weather on a day-to-day basis. This is a routine, daily occurrence by a water company that knows they should not be doing it and are still doing it. And I would like the water company to be more honest with the customers and with parliamentarians about what needs to be done to get to a point where all of those storm overflows do not discharge on a routine daily basis.
The honourable member talked a moment ago about data and how data on sewage spills is gathered. I wonder, does he agree with me that rather than allowing water companies complete control of gathering data on sewage spills, this is a function that ought to sit with the regulator, the Environment Agency?
Well, thank you for his intervention. I'm not a huge fan of the Environment Agency. I like the people that work there. There's just not enough of them working there. And certainly since 2010, the Environment Agency funding has been cut by over 50% over the past decade. And that creates real challenges in the efficiency of prosecutions. Because prosecutions that take years to deliver is not justice delivered quickly. It's not impact from fines going to the affected communities quickly. It's justice delayed, and it's able to be built into the daily business operation of the company. Now, particularly, Ms. Anderson, I just want to pick up on one final point before I finish my remarks, and that is around the investment that South West Water is making at Devil's Point in Plymouth. As a regular wild swimmer there, I swim all year round in short and in wetsuits, depending on the time of the year. I'm grateful that the Minister, I think his predecessor, authorised the campaign that I was running for a new bathing water status at Devil's Point and Firestone Bay. That's very welcome. The data collection there shows excellent water quality nearly all year round, but the 2 private raw sewage outlets that pump human effluent untreated into that really important part of Plymouth Sound is not acceptable. I'm grateful for South West Water for starting the work on closing that and adopting those raw sewers. That work is taking too long, and I would like to see a greater urgency in delivering it, because we know there's raw sewage going into our sea, and the action to take there should be quicker. I'd encourage the Minister to keep pressure on South West Water, because as a water company, they're not investing enough in the infrastructure that we need, and I do have long-term concerns about the amount of water in our system that will prevent future droughts and future water restrictions in the summer. So I'd be grateful the Minister could keep that pressure on South West Water so we're getting the water and sewage services that we deserve as a region. Thank you.
Anne-Marie Morris.
Thank you. If I may, I will focus my remarks today on water supply rather than pollution. Let me give you a context. The Environment Agency predicts that England risks running short of water by 2045. That's not very far away. That's due to climate change and population growth. The government is struggling to try to get us down to 122 litres per person usage by 2050. We currently use 145 litres. We've built no new reservoirs since 1991, and we know that increasingly the Environment Agency are going to reduce river abstractions. Now, in 2022, we had one of the hottest summers on record. And yes, we almost did run out of water. And so what happened in the southwest? Reservoirs were at a record low. Roadford Lake was at 30% below its usual level. Hosepipe bans, much to everyone's consternation, were introduced for over a year, from August 22 to September 23. The Environment Agency were not impressed. And as a result of a Freedom of Information Act request, a leaked email from the Environment Agency said as follows: South West Water is not honest, open and transparent with regulators about drought projections. It lacks understanding of its own water supply system. Basically, it wasn't prepared. What did South West Water do? Well, to its credit, it did start putting in place steps. It introduced the option of water audits. It had a number of water-saving products available, but not everyone can use them, and they ran out very quickly. Its Stop the Drop and Save Every Drop campaign were well regarded, and indeed other water companies have followed suit. But they didn't deliver the savings expected. The target was 5%. It was actually a reduction of 3% in consumption. They also introduced a non-household innovation fund. So far, so good, but as we head forward, climate change is not going to improve matters. It's going to make it worse. Looking forward then to the water plan for 24, there is an assumption that there will be a 16-fold increase in heat waves by 2030, that we will need 15 megalitres per day, or rather we will have less water available by 15 megalitres per day by 2050. The population in Devon will be up by 350,000. Many will work from home, increasing demand, and we know that abstraction licences are going to continue to decrease. So, net-net, we will need an extra 30 million litres of water a day for this planned period. I have a real concern that the supply and demand calculations that have been made by South West Water are unrealistic. There is a huge over-reliance on smart meters to deliver the goods, and indeed for every one of us using less water. The supply-demand balance metric for 22-23 was in the red for last year for South West Water because 2 of the 4 water zones were in deficit. By 2050, we will need 200 million litres of water per day. It is not realistic. We already know that the figures from South West Water are questionable. Work is going on with Ofwat looking at the leakage data. Work is going on looking at the consumption data. Smart meters have proved a bit of a challenge in the electricity industry, and I see no hope that they can be better for water, not least because they're going to be under paving stones. The apps, and it's not clear what sort of a device South West Water will use, do not work very well. Certainly, if there's anything to go by in the electric market, if your property is too far away from where the core meter is, then the app simply doesn't work. I put in a smart meter. I still have to give my readings every 6 months. To top it all, if we don't have proper guidance for individuals, if they don't know how much water they're using in a bath, a shower, a washing machine, if we don't have manufacturers putting water usage, if you like, grading systems on their machines, we are never going to change behaviour to meet the need, which clearly is there. So here, it is partly South West Water, indeed the water companies are bearing the brunt of trying to pass this message. I believe that the government also needs to do some more heavy lifting here. It feels like this is being done to consumers, not with and for consumers. I'm pleased that there is going to be a consumer-focused condition introduced into water company licences. But when? The government said 2024. Perhaps the Minister could confirm whether or not that is going to be the case. That will mean that we as customers should be well informed. We should feel that we can rely on South West Water to fix problems. Well, I can tell you, This weekend, my residents in Ashcombe were very concerned because the pumping station, which supplies their water, has been off on with different problems since 2017, and it failed again. And this is 2024, 7 years later. The consumer duty can come not soon enough. So water supply is just as important as pollution. We need to focus on it. We cannot rely on reduced demand assumptions. We need more infrastructure. We can't just sit on our laurels, and it needs to be innovative, and we need to look, as South Water, to their credit, are beginning to look at desalination. But that is only the start of a very big mountain which still needs to be climbed.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship. I just want to read from a policy paper. The costs of cleaning up coastal waters, a national resource, have not fallen fairly across the country. 30% of the cost has fallen on Devon and Cornwall, which have just 3% of the nation's population. The chair of the South West Water Consumers Committee believes their average bill will go up a further £150 per year. What year was that? That was written in 1996. It was a Liberal Democrat policy paper from almost 30 years ago, and it's a story that we that continues to chime today and has echoes down the decades. I mean, I think it is very good that we are talking today about the performance of one single water company, and South West Water is plainly one of the worst performing water companies in the country. But what we should not do is focus myopically on the performance of one single water company and miss the big picture, that being the regulatory environment in which all water companies are working. And it's that which I want to address my remarks in the next few minutes. Yes, it's true that South West Water is paying out some quite staggering dividend payments. Since 1990, South West Water has paid out an amount equivalent to £2,931 per property in dividends, and that is more than any of the other 13 English water companies. And a constituent of mine from Seaton recently pointed out to me that South West Water, or certainly its parent company, Pennon Group, owes £3.1 billion in debt, which is really quite similar to the amount paid in dividends since 1990, £3.2 billion. So, by these measures, South West Water is a poorly performing water company, but we have to look at the environment in which it is working, because these companies are working to the incentives that their shareholders set for them, rather than from the point of view of our own public benefit and public goods. There were 146 recorded dry spills over a 12-month period last year. And just to recap, these are illegal dry spills. Those are spills made by water companies when there is not heavy rainfall. And just yesterday evening, I was talking to somebody from a neighbouring constituency. Joe Bateman from the East Devon constituency attended the End Sewage Pollution Coalition meeting that I brought together, and she was explaining to me that she is suing South West Water for these illegal dry spills. I am not at all persuaded that water companies will simply do the right thing without government intervention. We know that the Environment Agency has been denuded of resources in recent years. The agency had £235 million cut from its budget when the Honourable Member for South West Norfolk was the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend. I mean, obviously, he was in the room for my speech, and I explained that there is more investment going into the Environment Agency to tackle the issues that he's raising. But could he just shed some light on Lib Dem policy for a second? Do you still want to abolish the EA or keep it? It's not clear. It's a muddle. It's a farce.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for the intervention. Liberal Democrat policy is to abolish Ofwat, but very much to bolster the Environment Agency. We need to make sure that we have a regulator with teeth. And I'm afraid to say, as I've said to the Honourable Member before, that if the Environment Agency has teeth, then they are in a glass of water by the side of the bed. And he says that he thinks South West Water is going to hear him in terms of his concerns. But I would point out that the chief executive of South West Water only forewent her bonus when it was plain that the level of campaigning and the level of popular opinion, the outrage that existed in the West Country was such that anything else would have been just unacceptable. And I should say also it's under pressure from parties like the Liberal Democrats that the Conservatives seem to have been talking in recent weeks about water companies and their executives not taking their bonuses when the performance of those water companies is so poor. I will give way.
On that point, and I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way on that point. And to clarify the Liberal Democrat policy and the actions that they've taken, maybe he could explain what his party's leader actually did to tackle this issue when he was Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change between 2012 and 2015.
I'd be very happy to. And of course, at that time, the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, or DEC as it was then, had different responsibilities. I should point out that now our policy is very much about reforming water companies' boards. We need a situation where these are transformed into public benefit companies. We need boards to have grassroots campaigners like those that I gathered together last night. We had, for example, Surfers Against Sewage. We had the Women's Institute present last night, who are pushing their What Are You Waiting For campaign. Fantastic campaigners who need a voice around the board level of these companies, because otherwise what we will be facing with is the catastrophe of some of our tourist hotspots being struck with this affliction that is water pollution. 4 of the 10 most affected beaches, in terms of blue flag beaches affected by pollution, were in Devon last year. That included Sidmouth, which endured over 600 hours of sewage spills. Now, we were talking earlier in this debate about the Environment Agency, and there needs to be, in my view, the end of operator self-monitoring. Operator self-monitoring is where water companies get to gather their data themselves before passing it to the regulator. And it means that they can potentially affect that data and vary what they are collecting. It's essentially the case that water companies are marking their own homework. And this is having a devastating effect on some of the tourist areas like the one in the Honiton constituency that I represent. So to bring my remarks to a close, I feel this afternoon that we've heard a mismatch between some of the rhetoric I've heard other honourable members using and their voting records. I point them to the 25th of January 2023, when we voted on the draft environmental targets (water) bill, where I was very proud to insist that the government should be having more stringent targets for water pollution. And I can see, Mr Henderson, that you are suggesting that I've reached the end of my time, but I'm very grateful for the chance to have my remarks today. Thank you.
Elaine Saxby.
Thank you, Mr Henderson, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and thank you to my honourable friend from East Devon for securing today's important debate. I must declare an interest. I surf. I surfed on Sunday on a beach that South West Water's website advised it was safe to surf on and had been for 24 hours. But a well-known campaign group assured me it had a sewage alert on it. This happens week after week. A campaign group has chosen to misrepresent the data it has, issuing sewage alerts when the combined storm overflows run, scaring people from entering our beautiful waters. Yes, we would all like the combined storm overflows to not run so often, but they are over 95% rainwater, and on most of North Devon's stunning surf beaches are rushing out into the Atlantic Ocean. It does not take 48 hours for the tide to sort that out. The recommended gold standard for removing overflow waters is 1 tidal rotation, 12.5 hours. I would like to take this opportunity to thank South West Water for the work that they have done to date, that has seen one of the jewels of the surf crown, Croyd, move from good to excellent bathing water quality last year, and also for working with those event organisers that accepted them over the Christmas period to try and get our big Christmas swims out safely. There is huge confusion that is being caused on our beaches, with the Victorian bathing water season still in place, meaning the most accurate data from the Environment Agency is not available from September through till May. And we're a hardy bunch in North Devon, we're out all year round. With that in mind, what I want to really focus on is the very serious issue that occurred in North Devon just 3 weeks ago, when there was a raw sewage spill from a sewage treatment works due to an electrical fault caused by a contractor on site. This resulted in 6 hours of raw sewage running into a large river that runs straight out to sea. Yes, there are questions to South West Water about the actual incident, but accidents do happen, and South West Water reported it in line with all procedures. The Environment Agency recommended closing 4 beaches and posted the sewage incident on their website and informed, unfortunately, only one of the 2 councils that needed notifying. No one told the beaches. That well-known campaign group that you would think would rush to issue a sewage alert did nothing of the sort. Their sewage alert has no definition. It literally means the storm overflow went at some point in the past 48 hours. They choose not to use the information that is available to them from the Environment Agency that details when there is a real sewage pollution incident. And here I have an issue with the South West Water website as well, which only includes data on their own storm overflows. But it is at least clear that that is what it is doing. But most people do not use the Environment Agency website. It's not a fancy app that tells you when there's a problem. And so on this day, whilst we now know that sewage was being released, the campaign group that apparently prides itself on supporting surfers did not use the data available to it, and surf lessons went ahead. Many people who regularly use the beaches in North Devon gave up on the campaign app some time ago. As one surf school said, we'd never go surfing if we listened to them. I asked the Minister what more can be done urgently to provide accurate information to those wishing to bathe or surf at this time of year. I urge the campaign group to actually think a bit harder about the information they are spreading. And
sorry to interrupt you. She's mentioned many times this campaign group. I'm assuming she means Surfers Against Sewage. Can she just be clear for the record? Who is it that she's being critical of?
I am happy to clarify, but by the same token, they don't actually like it when I mention the information they give me by name. So I do urge them to think a bit harder about the information they are spreading and at least try and issue a sewage alert when there actually is sewage. Because when they set themselves up 40 years ago, they ran a brilliant campaign, quite rightly so, as there was a lot of work to be done. They now privately state, with regards to the beaches in your constituency, we totally agree that huge improvements have been made to water quality there and in many places around the country, but don't like me repeating that in public as it undermines their very existence. Yes, South West Water have more to do, but I want to know how that incident at Ashford happened and the 2 more over Christmas at Croyd. But most of all, I want people to have easy access to accurate information about when it is safe to enter the water on some of the finest beaches in the world.
Kevin Foster.
Well, thank you, Mr Henderson. It's an absolute pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And in starting, I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend and fellow Jana, the member for East Devon, on securing this debate. You know, Mr Henderson, it is worth recalling where our water quality was back in the mid-1980s. For decades, the South West had some of the cheapest water bills in the country for one simple reason. We used to just dump all our sewage straight into the sea, with no real investment having been made to end that practice until that time. So it does have to be said, those who try and pretend that public ownership innately means great standards of environmental practice do need to think again. But there has been major investment since those times, but it is another initiative started under the coalition government that has brought the issue of water quality back into the headlines. Back in 2013, only 7% of storm overflow outlets had any monitoring on them. As of the end of last year, 100% do. Put simply, the issue and their use has always existed, but it was simply ignored, not monitored. Now, bathing water quality is vitally important for Torbay, especially given the popularity of water sports and sea swimming for both residents and tourists. And it's an issue I've done some considerable work on since being elected. Achievements so far include the completion of a major project at Tor Abbey Sands by South West Water to ensure our bay met the tougher legal bathing water standards which have come in since my election in 2015, and these standards remain in place today. Now, for background, the majority of beaches in Torbay have outstanding bathing water quality, with 11 of the 15 registered beaches in the English Riviera classified as excellent for water quality in 2023. Yet, with Goodwington rated as sufficient, there is need for further work to get all our beaches to good, then excellent ratings. So, to push forward action in the Bay, over the last year I've met with the Chief Executive of South West Water at Meadfoot Beach, which actually does not have an outlet on it, despite some claims. and their Chief Operating Officer at Goodrington Beach to discuss water quality across the bay and the next steps to invest in it. During my most recent meeting, South West Water recognised the popularity of bathing at Goodrington and the need to improve its water quality rating, with me pushing them for a target of the water quality being rated excellent by 2030, and to be fair to them, this being agreed. We'll therefore see a £6 million programme of investment by 2030 into the infrastructure near to Goodrington and Payton Sands to help to achieve this goal. And it has to be said, though, that this work alone will not see the bathing water at that beach increase to excellent, given the issues with items washed into the sea from surrounding parks and facilities, but it will provide further improvement. It's one of the things we sometimes miss in this debate, is that actually water quality can be as easily affected by what's washed in from a park, particularly in the form of animal waste, along with whatever discharge may be coming from an outlet. I'd also say that the plan for Goodrington and Payton is part of a £27 million plan for investment in the bay between now and 2030, with the clear goal of excellent at all our beaches. There's also an issue, the Torbay Harbour Authority, I must say under the previous Lib Dem Independent Coalition leadership of the Council and the current Conservative leadership have raised regularly with the Environment Agency, which is the need to stop using the same term for both rainfall drainage predictions and actual sewage releases. This is to create clarity for residents and ensure investment is targeted at sewage releases and end any misleading presentations of data by third parties. So, Mr Henderson, I look forward to the Minister's response and would ask you to cover some specific points. The first is what work will be done to hold South West Water to the commitments they have made to invest in further improvements in water quality. Two, alongside the wider plans for our region, how will local communities be able to hold South West Water and other partners, such as local councils, to pledges like the ones recently made relating to Goodrington and Payton Sands? And finally, what steps will he take with the Environment Agency to create greater clarity about what is rainwater draining from land and what is an actual sewage spill? This with the aim of bringing clarity for the public and focus for resource investment. Ms Henderson, progress has been made, but there is more to do, and we do need to keep a focus on this issue and ensure that our water company is held to account to ensure the progress residents expect to see is delivered.
Toby Perkins.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr Henderson. It's a great pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I'd like to start by congratulating the honourable gentleman from East Devon for securing this debate. His is a constituency I've spent many summer holidays in over the years, so it was great to hear about these names. And this is a vitally important issue, and so I hugely welcome the opportunity for us to discuss the performance of South West Water in more detail. I think there are lessons for us to learn about the whole sector by examining this case, but there are many issues that are specific to the South West that were raised within this. And whilst this issue has it had strong opinions from people across the debate, I think there were some really valuable contributions in what's been an excellent debate. The first point that the Honourable Gentleman from East Devon made that I think is worth repeating is that there are, and we know across the country, many people working for water companies who become the victims of harassment themselves. They are not in any way responsible, and I echo absolutely his point about that. He spoke, as others did, about the recent increase in funding for the Environment Agency and welcome that. But it is, absolutely context within this that the Environment Agency did get a 50% cut from 2010 to 2022. And so if it is the case, as I believe it is, that more money for the Environment Agency will improve the quality of their monitoring, so it has to be accepted that the huge cuts the Environment Agency experienced in the early years or the first 12 years of this government, have been a contributory factor to all of this. My honourable friend from Plymouth, Sutton and Devonport spoke about the need for more honesty from South West Water, and I think that was something that was repeated by other members, and spoke very powerfully about how important an issue this was for his constituents. He also invited us to imagine him swimming in various amounts of lycra, which is something that many people will have enjoyed in his when they were thinking about his outdoor swimming. But it is important that we reflect the fact that swimming is something that is key to the both the enjoyment of people in the South West, but also to the economy down there. The Honourable Lady from Newton Abbot reflected on the lack of investment infrastructure over many years and also said that she believed South West Water hadn't been honest in what I think was a very good speech. The Honourable Gentleman from Tiverton and Honiton spoke about the specific challenges in the local area, particularly in the fact that it is such a popular tourist destination. Obviously, the size of the population expands hugely in the summer months, and that has specific consequences, although that isn't necessarily reflected in the amount that is in who pays the bills there. He also questioned where the responsibility for companies stood between shareholders and their general sort of environmental good. And of course, you know, there is a statutory responsibility for businesses to respond to their shareholders, and that's why it stands with government to have responsibility for making sure that they perform their environmental standards, and that informs much of the approach that the Labour Party is taking. And the Honourable lady from North Devon identified the failure of investment between 2012 and 2015. She placed the responsibility at the Lib Dems floor, having been in government together during that time. But I think we would say that this is something that has happened throughout the last 14 years. And she also took the unusual step of suggesting that the major issue that people were angry about was the performance of a local campaign group, which I have to say is a new development I wasn't expecting in this debate. But I think that the recent Rivers Trust State of Our Rivers report, published only last week, shows that the dial overall hasn't shifted on the overall health of our waterways. Not a single English river is in good overall health, and that hasn't changed since their previous report in 2021. There are a multitude of factors which inform water health. 54% of rich river stretches failed because of activities attributed to the water industry, and that simply isn't good enough. Yesterday, I, along with the Honourable Member from Tiverton and Honiton, spoke at the campaign against sewage launch of their election manifesto. I think it was a shame that the government wasn't able to send anyone. I know the Minister was intending to go, but it was an important coalition because this is an issue of huge importance to our constituents and particularly to the economy in the South West. And as the Honourable Gentleman from Tiverton reflected, we heard from Jo Bateman and the powerful campaign that she is fighting to get the ability to swim in clean waterways recognised as an amenity that should be available to all of us. And in preparing for this debate, I was also pleased to hear of the work being done by Jane Kirkham and Perrin Moon, Labour's parliamentary candidates in Truro and Falmouth, and Camborne and Redruth, respectively. They've supported protests and started petitions that are adding to the community fight to preserve Cornwall's waterways. And Jane stressed that this discharges into Cornwall's rivers was impacting on tourism and costing millions alongside its environmental damage. Many people are concerned that Ofwat's new growth duty will further reduce their ability to be a force for environmental good. So I hope when the Minister responds, he can set out how he sees this duty working alongside Ofwat's responsibilities in terms of improving environmental outcomes. Does the Minister agree that the perception that our waterways aren't fit to swim in is damaging to growth as it depletes tourist revenue? And if so, would he confirm, if he's instructed Ofwat, that their new growth duty must mean that there should be no sewage discharges liable to reduce tourist growth?
Could I?
It is telling.
Could I stop you? I'm afraid you've run out of time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Henderson, and I would like to begin by thanking my honourable friend, the member for East Devon, for bringing forward the matter of the performance of South West Water before the House, which has proven to be an incredibly important debate. And I am disappointed in the continued poor performance of South West Water have shown and the impact that it is having on our local environment. I recently undertook a tour of the South West and heard firsthand how pollution can impact coastal communities and local economies. And I want to be clear that this government has made improving water company performance a top priority. While performance may have improved in the 2022-2023 reporting year, South West Water remain one of the worst performing companies, and there is still a long way to go, particularly on pollution incidents and storm overflow discharges, both of which were significantly above the industry average in 2022. And this is completely unacceptable. And South West Water should be under no illusion that they must take urgent steps to significantly reduce their pollution instances, as well as address other performance concerns, such as increasing resilience of the water supply. Now, I wish to begin by turning to some of the specific concerns raised by members in this House relating to South West Water's performance. I'm aware of the Honourable Member for East Devon's ongoing concerns regarding sewage discharges into Exmouth bathing water, and I recently have had discussions with him on this, and I know that he has written to me several times raising this issue. While the condition of the bathing water is currently classified as excellent by the Environment Agency, I wish to reassure the House that the recent instances raised by the member are currently being investigated by the Environment Agency, and they have required South West Water to provide data and information to support their investigations. And of course, it would be inappropriate for me to comment from the dispatch box whilst this investigation is ongoing, but please rest assured that the regulator will not hesitate to hold the water company to account if a breach has occurred. The Environment Agency is also scrutinising South West Water's overall pollution reduction plan to ensure the company have the right plans in place to prevent future issues. I will also be personally seeking assurance from the Chief Executive of South West Water, Susan Davey, that they are doing all they can to mitigate the environmental impacts and protect bathing waters, both in Exmouth and across the South West, to protect both the environment and public health. I am also aware of the concerns of members and the public after high-profile sewage spills such as those at Harlem Bay in Cornwall. I am pleased to see that South West Water have outlined an £800,000 investment by 2025 in this area to reduce surface water ingress into the combined sewer network to help reduce the storm overflow spill frequencies. But again, to be clear, their actions are coming too late following years of neglecting their civic duties, and this government will not be shy of holding the company to account. I will give way, yes.
I'm grateful to the Minister for giving way. And I wonder whether he would agree that the problem isn't just with one single water company, but also the regulatory environment in which water companies are operating. And that's why last night at the End Sewage Pollution Coalition meeting that I brought together, we had present the Rivers Trust, British Canoeing, the Angling Trust, River Action, Swim England, Surface Against Sewage and the Women's Institute. Does he regret not being able to attend?
Well, what I do find a huge misfortune is that it seems to be that Lib Dem policy is getting rid of one of the key regulators, Ofwat, as has been confirmed in the debate today. And given that we have just given Ofwat powers to take a much more robust approach in terms of their approach to dividends and water company bosses' bonuses, that if it's Lib Dem policy to get rid of Ofwat, I fear for the good of holding water companies to account as one of the key regulators, if that's what Lib Dem policy is going forward, because this government knows that the industry needs to go further and faster to address these issues. In 2022, data indicated that 6.47% of South West Water storm overflows spilled 100 times or more, which was twice than the sector average, and it's quite simply unsatisfactory. That is why we have introduced our Storm Overflows Discharge Reduction Plan, the most ambitious plan to address storm overflow discharges in water company history, which will deliver £60 billion of capital investment by 2050 and target our most important sites, including bathing waters first. The government has also driven water companies to ensure we now have 100% monitoring of storm overflows. This is up from 7% in 2010 under the previous Labour administration. And I may also make the point, Mr Henderson, that it was under the last Labour administration that they brought out self-monitoring, which we are absolutely wanting to try and get into a position of overturning. Now we have better data from 100% monitoring being rolled out. However, I do recognise the progress happening in the South West. Indeed, I recently visited a pilot scheme at Combe Martin Village with the Honourable Member for North Devon, where smart water butts and sustainable drainage had been introduced to better manage rainwater, and this was making a positive impact. And I'd like to commend my honourable friend for the good work that she has been doing in her constituency, working together with her constituents and campaign groups to make sure that a partnership-led approach can actively work on the ground when it comes to tackling sewage pollution. I will give way.
I'm grateful to him for giving way. He mentioned something that some of his colleagues have previously. Either it's the case that self-monitoring was a big problem, in which case, why didn't they get rid of it in the last 14 years? Or it wasn't the problem, but he needs to be credible about this. If he's trying to say self-monitoring is a problem, he should have been doing something years and years and years ago.
Which is why this government has made sure that we've rolled out 100% monitoring of our storm overflows, because once we have the data, we are able to hold water companies that are failing to account, and that is exactly what this government intends to do through our plan for water, which is all about more investment, stronger regulation and tougher enforcement. I also wish to address some of the points that was made by my honourable friend, the member for Newton Abbott, regarding South West Water's resilience to drought, as I know many in the region experienced extended hosepipe bans. And I'm pleased to say that South West Water have informed us that as of the 22nd of February 2024, the Rodeford Reservoir is now at 100% capacity and Collingford is at 87%, showing significant improvement, and that the Environment Agency continues to work with the company on a range of new sources to improve resilience. And I recently visited Hawkstore, a former clay pit that has been brought into water supply to try and deal with some of those water resilience issues. Now, many members mentioned the issue of investment. Of course, addressing these concerns requires investment, and this responds to some of the points made by my honourable friend for Torbay. Following a DEFRA commission, Ofwat, which it seems that the Lib Dems want to abolish, agreed to accelerate £128 million of funding to accelerate smart metering, build nutrient removal systems to improve river water quality, and accelerate 15 storm overflow improvements in Falmouth and Sidmouth catchments. South West Water's latest business plans include a significant £2.8 billion package of investment, which Ofwat is now scrutinising to ensure that it will truly deliver for customers and begin to turn their poor record around. Their commitments will also include achieving the lowest level of pollution incidence in the sector and significantly increasing water quality and water resilience by investment in new treatment works, reservoirs and tackling leakage. South West Water must now deliver on these ambitious plans, and this government will hold them to account every step of the way. And I look forward to my next meeting with the Chief Executive to be able to get an update on those plans. I also wish to assure the House that this government and our regulators in the Ofwat and the Environment Agency do not take underperformance lightly. As a result of failing to meet their performance commitments, Ofwat have directed South West Water to return £9.2 million to customers during the financial year of 2024 to 2025. This is in addition to £13.3 million returned in the financial year of 2022 to 2023. Again, I reiterate, if the Lib Dems want to get rid of Ofwat, I'm not quite sure who would be directing South West Water to do that. South West Water also instructed by Ofwat to produce a service commitment plan to demonstrate how they will meet the commitments made at the start of the current 5-year price review period. And this was updated in November 2023. And I will, as I've said, shortly be meeting the Chief Executive of South West Water again to discuss progress on their plans and hold the water company to account on their specific failures on pollution incidences. When water companies show fault, we will not hesitate to hold them to account. And since 2015, the Environment Agency has secured fines of over £150 million, including £2.1 million fine for South West Water in April 2023. Furthermore, under the action of the government has taken, we will be strengthening regulation to ensure that they have the tools to hold water companies to account. And I want to thank all members for their contributions today, particularly my friend, the Honourable Member for East Devon, for bringing this important debate before the House.
Thank you. You have 1 minute to wind up.
Thank you, Mr Henderson, and it's been a really good debate this afternoon, following on from the debate that I led last year as well. It's clear that cross-party people care about this because we've been paying South West Water bills for decades. I know my family has, and I think we all want to get value for money. We do not think that historically we have got that. Just briefly, if I may, on the Liberal Democrats again, the Honourable Member for Tiverton Honiton on Wednesday the 21st of January 2024, when talking about the EA and Ofwat, said the government probably ought to be stepping in and removing these regulators. So as ever, Lib Dem policy is clear as mud.
The question is that this House has considered the performance of South West Water. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting stands adjourned.
Has ended. The proceeding 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 has ended.